Welcome back, everybody, to another amazing edition of the USFL podcast. I'm the ref representing USFL Newsroom. That's the number one source in USFL news. If you didn't know, we've been dropping all the nuggets. I mean, James Larson has been working hard getting all those signing announcements up and ready for you to go through and read. And we're going to be talking about those a little bit later in the episode. But before we do, I'm joined as always by my man, Zach Kyleman. How you doing today, my friend?
Dude, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm talking not only myself, but also as a USFL fan. I know last week we had some signings and it just blew up in our face, and we'll talk about that a bit more. But I'm also, like I said, myself feeling pretty good too. A little behind the scenes, I actually caught a bit of the disease to not be named, as we mentioned it. I'm good now. I'm going back to work the day after this recording, luckily. So things have cleared up. But let's just say last few days, been able to have, in one way or another, a little more time, I guess, to cover the league. Not in the way I was expecting, but you know, I'll take it as a little blessing in disguise nonetheless. So I'm doing fine. But yeah, signing wise, I'm back on that track. It's been pretty great to kind of follow this along. The closer we get to training camp, the more signings have been kind of hitting rapid fire. So it's a lot more fun to see those news pieces go across my Twitter feed and getting to chat with those on like little on Discord or forums and whatnot.
And I mean, they've been fast and furious, but before we get to the news, hey, social media, sign you guys up at USFL Podcast, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Get signed up. You're going to get all the latest news. We're probably most active on Twitter, but you know what? Just for good measure, get them all covered. But if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed and click the bell. It builds morale. I mean, we got a lot of off-season things to talk about. If your team was in that bottom barrel, we know you need some morale heading into 2023 season 2. And I mean, things are picking up. Things are picking up on season 2 because, beyond the USFL guys signing to the NFL, I mean, we got guys signing to the USFL, which I think we all knew was a possibility. We saw some rumors, heard some murmurs, but we're going to talk about all that and a little bit more. First, though, Zach, USFL guys headed to the NFL. We're up to, at the time of recording, 22 for now. Like I said, I expect to see more of these guys coming through. And more importantly, we now have all 8 USFL teams represented in NFL training camps.
Oh, yes.
Dude, that is awesome. Like, this is proving spring football works. I mean, there's many reasons to have spring football, but one of the big ones is to give these guys a place to showcase their skills, prove that they're ready to move on to the majors, move on to the pros. And, I mean, this is the largest list that we've had to date. Right. And so, I mean, we're just going to kick things off with a couple of quarterbacks, right? Luis Perez, Generals quarterback, heading to the Rams. Kyle Sloter, Breakers quarterback, heading to the Jaguars. Now, I mentioned this last week, Zach, maybe not so much with the Rams, but the Jaguars, I feel like is a perfect landing spot for some of these guys coming into the spring leagues, moving into the pros. You have teams that are rebuilding. They're trying to reassess everything, and you will have opportunities to shine. With teams like that, it's not just the first and second string guys. Mm-hmm. They're bringing some of those third string guys in. They're doing whatever they can to change their luck, get back on the winning streak. And, I mean, Kyle Sloter and the Jaguars, I mean, he has some tough competition in the quarterback room, don't get me wrong, but if he's still here come preseason, I expect to see some Sloter action out of the Jaguars. And then, I mean, realistically, he keeps that role. I could see him get some real NFL regular season action, especially in a 17-week season. That's another thing to remember, Zach. Shorter preseason, longer season. We saw it last year. I mean, we saw some of the spring league guys from the XFL last year come in and go gangbusters. And I think there's a real good shot here. Now, Perez, I mean, he probably has more quarterback competition than even Kyle Sloter over there coming into a Super Bowl winning team. I mean, Matty Stafford, golden god, bionic quarterback.
Yes.
But you know what? Maybe, you know what? They go bowling. Matty Stafford hurts his wrist. Perez is out there getting signed up. So I don't know. Thoughts on the first two picks that we're talking about here? First two names.
Sure. If I'm looking at the rosters for the two that they are competing, I mean, quarterback's another one of those that's heavy competition. Both of them right now are kind of coming in as that number 4 QB into camp. I will say Perez's avenue to me is a little harder. If you look at their their setup, John Wolford has established himself as number 2 under Sean McVay's system. Can't say I have enough example on say Bryce Perkins, but it'll be a little harder, I think, generally because 3 QBs isn't as often a commonality on rosters anymore in the NFL. So, he's got some work cut out for him. Nonetheless, though, Perez has some familiarity. He was, funny enough, before he was in any of these spring leagues, remember, his first stint as a QB he was with Sean McVay in 2018. He was in camp in Los Angeles for the Rams. So there's some familiarity there. So Sean definitely knows what Luis is capable of. And obviously he's got to have been tracking his career. His stint with the Generals, you could argue, was probably the best out of any of the 3 leagues he's been in terms of overall performance. So him coming back to get a little competition there, that's really nice. It's going to be hard, though, because John Wolford has established himself ever since the AAF.
Another spring league guy, right? Yeah.
Another spring league guy, which is kind of incredible. 2 AAF guys now on that roster. So it'll be hard for Luis. As for Kyle Sloter, as the NFL knows, he has been around the block everywhere at this point. The Jaguars, he adds another team onto that roster. So, his competition is Jake Luton and CJ Beathard, I should say. CJ Beathard's been to a few teams. You might remember him from San Francisco when he had his best known stint. Jake Luton, Oregon State. He was drafted 2 years ago by Jacksonville in the 6th round. So he's been around a little bit. So there's some competition there. Sloter's experience might help in this regard. The thing is, though, like I said, if you're coming in as the QB number 4, you got your work cut out for you. But nonetheless, his experience in all other NFL rosters, I think that gives him an edge up in terms of between him and Luis as to who might stick more. So I'm looking at Kyle as possibly the one. If you're a Breakers fan, it's still an outside chance that he might stick in there. And I hope he does. But he does have, I think, the better possibility of staying in Jacksonville than, say, Luis does in LA, just based on those 2 QB competitions.
Right. So, 2 big names right off the bat, but we have so many more to go through here.
Absolutely.
So now we have wide receiver Osiris Mitchell, Stallions championship, baby. Moving to the Packers, but I'm happy for him regardless. Here's one of my 2 in a row.
No kidding.
2 from my team, 2 going to the same team. We have defensive tackle Demarcus Davis and linebacker Tigre Scales, both gamblers all in, and also both moving to the Cincinnati Bengals, which again, the Bengals are a hot team, so I feel like it's going to be some tough competition there. But if you make that team, you're coming onto a team that has a high likelihood of heading into the postseason. The same with the Packers, as much as I hate to say it. So, thoughts?
Right. I'll tell you one thing. Osiris Mitchell is joining a team that I think, for the most part, it's kind of a free-for-all in terms of like receiver depth. The Green Bay Packers, that's something, if you notice. We talked about Devontae Adams. His departure to Las Vegas. So, they have their main guys up at the receiving core. You have Allen Lazard, Sammy Watkins, and right now on the depth chart, at least according to ESPN, I'm going to reference that, by the way, as we're moving forward, Christian Watson, and there's other ones. Randall Cobb obviously is in there too, but I think if you look at least the receiving core, and by the way, Osiris joins fellow USFL player or all USFL talent in terms of Sal Cannella in Green Bay. He's going to have a chance to help stick on that roster as well. Mitchell, I think, has a good shot if he can get an impression in early, work hard, get his preseason time in, and be effective with it. He might be able to find a spot. Still competitive, but Green Bay is a spot you want to land to where with how limited the receiving talent is in Green Bay this offseason, that's a good shot for someone to stick. In terms of the other guys mentioned here in Cincinnati, Demarcus Davis. I mean, there's been tons said about Demarcus Davis. I think not only for Gamblers fans, but I think a lot of alt football podcasts, a lot of alt football personalities love the guy, love the story behind him. I've seen a ton of praise from guys like USFL Network. I know they love guys over there. Ace loves Demarcus Davis. They love the guy, and so this was a big moment for him. And to Gray Scales as well, both Gamblers folks coming over. The Bengals are no stranger to signing alt football talent, so I'm not shocked at all they went to the well here on this. But they're going to have, I mean, linebacker-wise, defensive tackle, I will say Davis, it might be a little more work cut out for him, but I think that there is a chance if you can get in there, be a rotational piece as well. At the Gray Scales, it's going to be a little difficult as well. But again, I think that, at least getting film and tape, anything's possible is what I'm going to try and say. I'm trying to be like devil's advocate, but also telling you as well, like, this is good. Because, I mean, you're going to have to put your work out for you. But honestly, I think just again, teams have said that the league has shown quality talent. So I think you got to take that as something that they're picking them up for reasons. Like, they've recognized these guys, they put in the work, they're ready to come into camp, conditioned and well off playing in a league already. So I like these pickups too. As we go down the line, again, there's more of them. I'd say I think there's more opportunities where I'll be honest with you, where I think guys can stay on these rosters, and you'll see them going into the season where I think there's a good possibility they can stick with them.
Right. So, I mean, coming up, we have a couple big names too, and we get into our first group of Panthers getting picked here. But starting before that, we have wide receiver Rashard Davis from the Bandits heading to the Jets. Tino Ellis from the Panthers going to the Dolphins. Bailey Gaither, and this is a big one for the Maulers, going to the Ravens. And then a second Panther, Lance Lenoir, going to the Eagles. And I'd say Lance Lenoir, Bailey Gaither, they might have a good shot here. And the other ones as well. But I'm just looking at the teams. The Dolphins, I mean, feels like a good spot. But when we're looking at the receivers, right, we talked about this before. Receivers, quarterbacks, the competition is very high. But this feels like they might be able to wedge in a spot on either one of these teams. Maybe the Ravens a little bit more difficult than the Eagles. Maybe I'm misremembering, but I feel like the Eagles probably have some openings and opportunities there, at least maybe not first string, but once you get into that second, third string, right? I don't know.
Right. And I'll tell you, Philadelphia, I think there might be some possibilities. I'll retouch on them in a second here, but I do think that there is some shots. I'll say for New York with Rashard Davis, he actually is a little higher up, at least in listings for the charts. But I think that they don't really have much depth beyond their first string of receivers. If I'm being personally honest, I mean, they did pick up Garrett Wilson, star out of Ohio State, Jake from In the Shadows. It used to be our den. That's why I'm making sure. But he would know very well, quite frankly. Otherwise, Corey Davis, Elijah Moore. There's a little more depth there, and obviously Davis has the returning capability, so that helps his case as well. Sure. That's something, you want to be multifaceted when you're getting on a chance at a roster. So where do you fit the best? If you aren't going to be at the top of the chart, where can I fit into where I can stick? So he's got two phases that he can stick with. So Rashard Davis, I think that has a shot. In terms of some of the others we just listed off here, Tino Ellis. Ellis used to be with the Miami Dolphins, so that connection. He's already was there. He basically took a spell off, went to Michigan, basically showed off his talents with the Panthers, and now he's right back on that roster. So, he gets another shot to kind of say, hey, maybe I can fill back in, right? And have a chance. DB, one of the most competitive spots on the defense to try and make and kind of stick. So it'll be harder, but obviously him being there before, him coming back now, new regime, of course, but still him coming back now and them recognizing that's great to see. Bailey Gaither, I'll tell you, the Baltimore Ravens, I think that they're going to be looking for, someone else they can throw to besides, of course, Mark Andrews. Right. That's something that I think Ravens fans have been saying, okay, Lamar Jackson, obviously he's more of the running threat. Obviously that offense has been designed to be run first, pass second. But if we're trying to be more multifaceted, who can we get to? And again, receivers competitive, but I think Baltimore, if I talk about teams that, hey, here's a good place that you can have a shot to kind of stick, if I'm being honest, I think this is a spot that you can say that if I'm being quite frank. Sure, Rashad Bateman's coming back this year's come back fully healthy, But if I'm looking throughout the rest of this depth for Baltimore, at least based on what I'm looking at, he has a chance.
Mhm.
I think that, and he made his impact with the Maulers. I think teams realized that, their QB scenario was kind of out of whack.
Right.
We know about Kirby Wilson's whole setup last year. I don't need to go deeper into that than anyone's already seen. But Bailey has true talent. So, this is someone I think they pick up and go, all right, this is a kid that knows how to play. What if we give him someone that's a competent QB to throw to? And if he gets his shot, he can make the most out of those shots.
Mm-hmm.
So that's someone, if I'm looking at another one of these signings, I think that's somebody I think that can make an impact and stick if you get just enough time in preseason on a field setting to impress the coaches.
Right. Now, moving to the last three, we got a big one kind of sandwiched in here, but we have guard Garrett McGinn, Generals going to the Giants. And I'm going to skip just go out of order because this one's a big one. So we're going to move to wide receiver Ishmael Hyman, Panthers going to the Packers. But now, this is a name I think a lot of people were waiting to see come through the pipeline. USFL MVP KaVontae Turpin heading from the Generals to the Cowboys on a 3-year deal. Right, so now we're talking like a whole different thing. 3-year flipping deal.
My God.
Right? So,
Okay.
I mean, we've now just shown, 1, spring football works. 2, if you can showcase your skills enough, we're looking at multi-year status. And, I mean, there's already videos of him getting his first reps with the Cowboys just like a day or so after the news was kind of rumored to be announced.
Yeah.
This is, what a success story for Turpin, the league, the Generals coaching staff for, picking him in the draft. All around, it's just a win for spring football outside the league. This is exactly what you want to see. We just rattled off a list of names. And again, it seems like it gets bigger every week. And that's amazing. And again, this is just year 1. We've already seen Robert Morris out there at the Raiders training camp scouting for season 2. Right there.
Yes, we have.
They're proving that it works now with these signings while out there scouting and getting ready for the next season. But sign up KaVontae Turpin. I know there's a lot of Generals fans that are going to be sad he's not going to be there next year. And probably a lot of people sad that he's going to the Cowboys, I'm not going to lie. But I can only be happy for him. And it's in Texas. Sign him up. I'll give him that.
There you go.
Thoughts on the rest of the picks here? Thoughts on KaVontae Turpin? Thoughts all around?
Yeah, thoughts all around. Why not? And you know what? I didn't even say Lance Sonora. You know what? As a Panther, I got to go backtrack.
Yeah.
As a Panthers fan, I'm going to miss him here. Philadelphia, I think, is another one of those teams that you might have a chance to stick with a little bit of depth, at least trying to find out who's who besides, say, A.J. Brown. But I think it's a lesser degree than, say, like a Bailey Gaither going to Baltimore or Green Bay. I will talk, though, that Ishmael Hyman, I said Green Bay with Osiris Mitchell. It gets a little more confuddled when you got 2 guys coming over. So if that shows you how much Green Bay needs to invest in the receiver spot, see who they have. The fact they got 2 guys from the USFL, I think that means a little bit. So competition, I think one of these dudes at the very least might be able to stick.
Sure.
I think. If both of them do, fantastic. But I think at least one of them I definitely think can stick on this roster for sure. Garrett McGinn, all USFL guy from the Generals, in terms of the location, not moving too far, going to the Giants, a team that quite frankly could use a bit of the help. And honestly, he's shown the talent that he really could step in and have that help. And honestly, it's funny. Some Bears pundits had him listed as a guy they were looking at during the season. I was kind of like, yes, because the Chicago Bears do need guard help. And well, they didn't pick him up, but that's okay. I'm not crying or anything.
Yeah.
No, I'm messing around. But no, congrats to Garrett McGinn and KaVontae Turpin. Look, there's buzz around this pickup. And it's not because of the fact that it's, just that it's the MVP of the USFL. He's going to Dallas, so big name team. And the bigger kick, I had to ask again. I knew this beforehand, but I just have to do it for effect. It's a 3-year deal. So there's obviously contract stipulation stuff. There's language, but nonetheless, you say there's a 3-year deal. That's a commitment factor. That means that someone, Mike McCarthy's staff looked at him and said, dang, this guy can play.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, KaVontae Turpin, I'll be honest, he's had one hell of a road back because he was actually a pretty good prospect, ran into some of his own off-field issues in 2018. He basically took the spring and alternative scene and flipped it to what he could use in his advantage. Sure. I mean, let's think back. He went FCF, ELF, European League football. He played in Poland for half a season. Then he goes to USFL, spins that for an MVP season, and now he's landed on the Dallas Cowboys, who are committing 3 years. And honestly, if you look at the Cowboys depth chart, now credit, here's another guy. It's a dual-faceted threat. Kick returning and receiving.
Right.
Now, sure, they have Tony Pollard. He does his own returning. He's done really well at that position. I think KaVontae, you can challenge for that. He's very shifty. Dude has said he runs a 4.29. He's pretty fast. And we've seen that he's very effective in that regard in terms of return game. But KaVontae also has a chance, in my opinion, to stick in the receiving game. To me, they have a bit of a third receiver, possibly slot guy that they could look into him. So KaVontae, to me, the 3-year commitment's one thing. But if we had any doubt, I think he's one that I don't see him leaving Dallas. I think at the very least this season, you have for sure got a dude that's locked in. McCarthy had a lot of praise for him and the USFL in that presser when they signed him. So this one is high profile, not only for just himself, but the USFL has got to be loving it.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
This is the biggest press they've gotten out of all the signings. I mean, not to mention, though, that the league's been trending with these signings already. This one was a big one profile-wise. A lot of pundits were like, whoa, 3-year deal. Whoa, MVP of the league. Whoa, speedster. Guy that's had a heck of a comeback story up and through these leagues. Good story for the league and showing that its developmental side of it is working. And good for KaVontae Turpin. He's got to be really thrilled right now.
Oh, yeah.
He's getting his money. At least he's getting a bag in terterms of his pay scale.
No, 100%. And this is exactly what I love watching these spring football leagues for, is to see, okay, you got it here. You move on to the next step. And now it gives me another reason to watch the NFL, right? There's probably not a lot of reasons I would watch a Cowboys game normally unless my team was playing against them. I'm probably going to tune into a couple of these other games just because I want to see these guys and see how they progress throughout their careers. And then more so, we start it all again next year, right? We go right back into it. We create some more stars. The USFL has done the unthinkable. They've proven that you can make it a full season. They've proved that you can create a pipeline for the NFL for these players to come through, right? They're not trying to stop the NFL. They're almost embracing them to bring these guys up. And I mean, it's a good relationship if we get into that season 3, 4, 5, and maybe it becomes an official thing. Maybe there's some contract stipulation. I don't know. I don't want to speculate just yet.
Sure.
But I mean, this is exactly what we want to see. I mean, for a startup, if you will. I mean, yeah, it's owned by Fox, but the USFL, for all intents and purposes, is a startup, right? It's
I mean, it is. It's a brand new property for Fox, as we've talked and we've had our own discussions with folks. I mean, they look at this as a serious venture. That's the thing. They're getting going and they want to do it their way. But, grand ambition's still, quite frankly, there. This is part of it, though. Like, this is what's nice. They get to, they're getting to promote this angle of, hey, we can develop talent and we can be our own league at the same time. So, thing is, 22 signings in, that's still only a fraction of the players. They're going to retain plenty of players no matter what. And you can even argue, I mean, again, I hope most of these players stick in the NFL. I really do. But some guys can come back.
Sure.
That's the thing. If they want to come back for their next year and they don't stick on these NFL rosters, they can come right back to these teams. So there is that chance too. Obviously, I think many of us hope they stick. Greedily, I think some of us hope that we get to see these guys back. Like, for example, me with Lance Lenore. I'm like I said, I'm not crying, but inside I'm like, man, we could really use Lance Lenore to help with Joe, give Joe Walker some pressure off next year. So if it's Paxton Lynch or say, Josh Love are coming back, they get another target. But hey, Jeff Fisher will figure that out. And quite frankly, he's kind of already their team's already looking, as we'll talk in a second. Because that's the signings and all that are kind of becoming a factor.
Well, we joked about it last week. We joked about it last week, right? I said, we heard some rumors. I heard some murmurs online that teams were making free agent off-season signings. And I said, I've learned if it's not on the official USFL account, It's not official. And I didn't expect it to be on the official USFL account, quite honestly. I figured maybe there is some off-season stuff going on. But lo and behold, I mean, we have not one but two teams picking up some guys here.
Yes.
So we have the Generals that picked up two guys, defensive back Hassan Muhammad Rogers, offensive lineman Jonathan Timmons. And then the Panthers, I mean, after losing their first two players from the picks, three actually now, I believe, well, they have four pickups going here. So we have, yes, three picks. There we go. I just had to verify that. But so we have four new additions to the team. So two defensive backs, Keontae Harden, Keandre Evans, wide receiver Ladarius McElroy, and wide receiver Ladarian Brown. Ladarian Brown, excuse me.
Darren Brown.
I mean, I'm kind of blown away here, but I mean, realistically, here's the situation as we understand it. These teams are free. The coaches are free to start accumulating players to fill up that, remind me again, 75-man roster. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
that is my understanding. 75-man, you could fill that up. I can't say there's concrete draft detail. They're still working on a lot of season 2 stuff, but you can start signing right now. Like the off season, like think of it as the NFL off season essentially. Like once signings are allowed to go, you can go. So they're locking down guys. And here's what people I think have been noticing is the USFL is trying to lock down, guys that are either they're kind of the small school scouting is what a lot of these are,
Sure.
or some guys that were in D1 that didn't fully get the longest ride, or in terms of Keontae Harden, he had apparently a solid impact with the BC Lions last season. Unfortunately, he was let go in May, and now he's getting signed on the USFL now. So, it's all over the place. They're getting scouted out. I mean, obviously, Robert Morris going to, training camps is one thing, and the league's currently doing that on their own regard. But teams are free to do what they like. I mean, Skip Holtz even mentioned in my interview with him that, it's open season right now. You can go and get your rosters filled up. So if you see guys like, for example, Mike Riley, Jeff Fisher, they see people, and Mike Riley's been pretty active, as you can tell.
Oh, yeah.
Because I mean, there's some folks that they've been talking about before this. Like, actually, I'm pretty sure Jonathan Timmons was kind of announced under the radar a little bit ago.
Well, that was the one I think I saw. It was like on Instagram or something, and I said, well, okay, it seems like things might be happening, but again, as I've learned, it wasn't on the official count.
Right.
So I was like, let me just wait. Let me feel this out, see where this is going. And here we are, getting signed up.
Right. And you notice, too, some of these positions are ones that do need to be filled up just based on NFL signings. So the Generals, for sure. I mean, we talked about, Garrett McGinn. They're going to need some depth at offensive line. Timmons will help with filling up with that, I imagine. And then, they also, of course, the Generals have also had Neal in their secondary move on, too. So Hassan Muhammad Rogers, that's another one to fill that depth. And then, of course, the Panthers, you look over there. What are some things the Panthers needed this offseason? Especially secondary help. So they've already gotten two guys that either have made an impact or are looking to that they signed up. Obviously, they've had two receivers go on into the NFL signings. So, Ladarius McElroy. And then I'm actually kind of surprised at the running back signing with Ladarian Brown, though he was originally with Oklahoma State. So, it's a Power 5 talent, someone that I think is looking for another avenue to get back up to get possibly up back to the NFL. So, right now, we've been specified that it's open game. If you are one of the 8 coaches and, personnel departments that's under Jim Pop, go at it, start scouting, check out players. And I imagine that cut downs in the NFL will also affect this as well. But hey, if you can find some guys that are under the radar right now, or maybe they missed the 2022 draft class, which I believe Timmons last I checked, and I'm actually going to double check this because I had this up. Yes, Jonathan Timmons was part of the NFL draft class. And Draft Diamonds actually had a little piece on him. He's from Alabama A&M. So, it's all free, fair game. You can go, small school prospects, guys that were just under the radar or were in the Power 5s set up in college. I mean, you go as you please, but you're able to fill up. Eventually, though, you're going to cut down at some point because training camp will eventually come.
Well,
and you also got to consider that there is eventually going to be a draft.
Sure.
whatever way that's set up too.
Well, and that's what it'll be interesting to see how the draft is set up. And I bet you that's why they're still kind of working on the details to see how many spots do we need to fill, right? Because if you don't need to fill every spot, well, you're not going to draft every spot, right? There's no reason to do all that. So that'll be the most interesting to see is how the rounds work out, how many picks you get per round. We already know who's getting the first pick in each round. Congratulations, Zach. But I mean,
know, I'm so happy.
There's potentially another pool, though, of players that they might be able to look at here. I mean, this is kind of breaking news going into this podcast. Major League Football, are they, aren't they? We don't know. We don't know at this point, but it seems like something's going on. But I mean, that alone, I know that the Major League Football contract prohibited players from going to the XFL and the USFL. Unfortunately, if it folds or whatever it might do, I don't want to even speculate on it. I'm just going based off of screenshots from players and coaches and things that we're hearing through the grapevine. I don't want the MLFB to fold. I want as many of these avenues as possible. So I'll state that there. But if the worst does happen, I mean, it's another pool for these guys to look at. I mean, XFL included, right? And quite honestly, if you want some goodwill in the community, I mean, as of now, there's a lot of guys stranded in Mobile, Alabama. Mobile, I don't know.
It's Mobile.
I mean, I'll tell you, if somebody booked them a flight back home, whatever company does that, if you plan on signing them or not, you're going to get some goodwill there. Either way, I'm not going to speculate, but the pool itself is there. And I mean, there's some good players there. There's some folks that I've seen play in various different spring leagues, fan controlled football. I don't know if you'd really count them as a spring league or an arena league. They're kind of their own thing. But another thing to look at, especially now knowing that, we have 75 rosters to fill up on 8 teams. And some of these teams are losing players as we talk. So this is my piece.
No, I understand. And, honestly, it's almost weird. We've made, obviously, in previous episodes, you've known we talk when we mentioned MLFB, it might be starting. Now it's kind of strange as we go on here talking about that whole issue, which, there's a lot to be kind of twisted out or kind of, I guess, unraveled. So we can't go, I'm not even going to go too far into that. It is looking a little dreary, though. And I know some players do have XFL contracts in that league. That they were kind of this was kind of like a stayover type of deal. It was only supposed to be 4 weeks. Could still be. Now, I'm leaning towards maybe not.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, there are some folks that have those contracts. Many don't. So, if this does not happen and you have a lot of talent that was already kind of pre-scouted by multiple coaches that, I'll be honest, the MLFB has some decent coaching talent from what I've seen.
Jerry Glanville right off the top.
I mean, Glanville alone, I mean, you can kind of take a look at these guys and go, or if you have connections, go, hey, what do you think of some of these folks? I mean, we're talking good, at least scouted out quarterbacks, receivers, DBs, all the positions that, these guys have trained for a few weeks. And honestly, they probably want that next opportunity. And if you're the USFL going, all right, if this league does indeed say not play, and we are looking for folks that have been looked at, they got a bunch of film, we have people that give them resources, why not take a look? Because I would do that in a heartbeat. And honestly, I think if you're the league, you get some goodwill points from players kind of swooping in going, hey, I got signed up right off the bat.
Hold a training camp.
That's just because my opinion, I mean, seriously, if I was a player, like if I was playing center, like I was in high school and I was into this and the MLFB is going the course it is right now, supposedly, and you have someone that is outside looking in going, okay, there had to be something that they liked about this and you're getting scouted. Shoot, I would hope that propels me to one of the 2 leagues that is currently looking to play outdoors and come next spring.
Right.
So I think the USFL might, I mean, if I'm being honest, I at least have 1 or 2 scouts in Jim Pop's crew that are going, all right, we'll see what happens with this. And maybe we pick a few guys off because maybe they won't be under contract and we can bring them over here. That's what I would be thinking about. Hopefully, I mean, if they get to play, great. And if that gets resolved, great. But if not, and we got to think about if not, that whole pool is right there for you.
Right.
To kind of cherry pick who you like. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. And I mean, we're talking a couple hundred players right there. And I mean, I have a feeling a good chunk of these guys will find a spot in one of the spring football leagues, fan controlled football, if you want to include that as well. But it's unfortunate, right? Like, I mean, there's a lot of people that made jokes about the MLFB. I mean, there's a lot of people that are 100% behind the MLFB, right? So it's kind of both sides of the fence there. And I mean, I don't think anybody expected that they would get as far as they did this far and then not play, right? That was kind of they're at least going to play this test season. Maybe they don't make it next year, or maybe they do, and whatever. Maybe I don't think anybody fully expected this to happen. It's unfortunate to see. Now I got a question, Zach.
Sure.
Don't I test my luck, put an order, and buy an MLFB hat? Because here's my hope. One, I have a feeling it's like drop shipping or a third-party vendor like Printful or Printly or Teespring, who knows what. But if they're not, and they announce in the morning, because just for everyone at home, we record Thursday night. So like I said, this is kind of breaking news coming into this show. I mean, there's a good chance I could lose $35. I might take the gamble there. And if anything, maybe I learned that was the $35 that they needed to get on the field this year. I don't know. Maybe that was it. They were just $35 away from hitting the earmark there. Either way, it's a bummer to see. You know, I was also saying on the Discord, because our Discord, we have a lot of MLFB fans on there.
There are quite a few.
And I mean,
there are a lot on there.
Man, I feel bad for some of those guys. I mean, they were heavily invested in this league, both with time and money. And then, I mean, you know, the inside the MLFB guys that are part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. I mean, I feel for them. Because I've been. I mean, they went through it as well with the XFL and things like that. But I mean, as a content creator, a podcaster, whatever you want to call it, I mean, it's not nearly as bad as I imagine the feeling is for the players and the coaches and the staff. But I'll tell you, it hurts, man. I mean, there was a good month and a half where I just felt defeated. So I hope nobody out there tries to take blame at the content creators. I mean, I don't know, but I'll tell you this, is not their fault. If anything, they would do whatever they could to keep this league afloat. I mean, the spring league community, I'm very fond of it. So I try to be a good ambassador wherever I go. I know primarily we talk about USFL here, but I figure this was kind of worth talking about. Sure, we spun it in and there's an opportunity to pick up some of these guys, and there is. But I hope nobody's happy that this happened. Right?
No.
Keep an eye out. I'm sure some of these guys might start up GoFundMes, but with GoFundMes, always be careful. Make sure it's somebody affiliated with the league. You never know. But hopefully something like that gets spun up. And if it does, I'll be the first one to share it on social media as well. Because, I mean, right now, there's a good chunk of these guys that are flipping stranded, Zach.
There are. I'll give you one in terms of GoFundMe that I do want to highlight on here, because the guy does have I trust Evan Wilsmore, I will say, who is part of the News Hub family. He has a GoFundMe going for them on his social. If you go on Twitter, or if you look up just his name as well, that one he's trying to get help for funds. I know Terry Shea, they're trying to get kind of some flights out there for guys. So that's also what the fund is for. So If you want a good GoFundMe that I would say I recommend trusting, check out look his up for the MLFB on GoFundMe. You'll be able to find it. We'll try and put a link in the description too.
Sure.
For that as well. But I mean, look, I was expected to talk about this today, and honestly, it just sucks because you're talking the XFL when that went under, the AAF. It sucks for the fans. It sucks for content creators that will enjoy these leagues like us. And I mean, you can't do anything. It's all on their end. That's the thing. Like I said, the MLFB hasn't said it's fully dead, but like I said, it's leaning like it is. That's as far as we can put it. But guys we know are stuck currently in Mobile, Alabama.
Well, yeah, so that's where it stands now.
That's the deal.
Essentially, the hotel kicked everybody out of their rooms. They're being told, this is just to give the full scenario here, because I do want to be fair here. They're being told by league execs, I'm not sure exactly who, that They're responsible for their own ways getting home, but they plan on reporting next week. That's the story as it stands now as of recording. We'll see. We'll see. But I mean, even then, I'm going to say this, Zach. If you were one of those players and this just happened and you finally get home, are you going to fly back and risk that this is going to happen again? Some will, some won't. And that's the unfortunate situation about this. And that's what it's tough, man. It's tough to start a spring football league. I mean, it's not cheap. I mean, they've been at this for what, 7 some years now. They finally got to this point, and then it kind of fell apart. The USFL's like the anomaly because we're going into season 2. And that's what's like the crazy part of this is we're seeing like season 2 things. We knew a lot of what was going to happen in the season. Yes, there's going to be officials. There's going to be signings. Maybe there's a rule change or two. There's going to be games. And we pray to God we get to the championship. We did that. But then it's like, oh, wait, the off season's here. What's going to happen? How many of these guys are going to get signed? Are there going to be free agent signings? And we're seeing it, right? We're starting to see, and we're learning more and more and more as we go. So, I mean, the spring football architecture, if you will, is pretty strong right now. So at least the good news in that is there's plenty of landing spots for these guys to kind of find a new home. It's just unfortunate that it had to happen like this. I mean, because it gives spring football a little bit of a bruise, a black eye, if you will. I mean, look at the AAF. After what, week 2? No, it's just a payroll glitch. But then Tom Dundon comes in and funds the league. And then what, just a few weeks later, the plug's pulled, and we're in almost an eerily similar situation where guys are stranded. They have no way home. There's no hotels. We're looking for GoFundMes. So, I mean, that's why I love to see the USFL survive and go into that season 2. We didn't have to deal with that riffraff. And hopefully we just keep building and growing from here. I mean, we talked about like the unwritten 3-year rule, 3-year plan, if you will, coming from the league going into the season. But now it's like their scope is like 5 to 7 years. So clearly they're looking well beyond just these initial couple years. They're looking not only to stay on the field, but build and expand and bring private owners. And the more they do that, the more that like these types of things, I think they're less inevitable to happen because there is going to be a stronghold in that market. There won't need to be another one pop up or a third or a fourth one pop up because there is a strong foothold in the spring community. And you know what? Sign them up. You know what? Let's see where we go. We you know what? We're just past year 1. We still have 2, 3, 5, 7, hopefully 10 years to go. And we'll just keep talking about it. And hopefully it just keeps getting bigger and better. But just an unfortunate thing to see from the MLFB side.
A wise man once said, patience is strength.
Oh, so, man, you had to do it.
No, I'm more. Obviously it's a bit of a nudge, but look, hey, if anything, I think the USFL is using that phrase a bit better, at least right now. So that's what I can put there. But yeah, I mean, we'll keep side monitoring that at the very least. Look, wishing the players at least to get home, and hopefully, like I said, leagues like the USFL, XFL, they get opportunities elsewhere. Because hey, there's some folks I've looked at these rosters and I'm like, I wouldn't mind seeing some of these guys if they aren't pre-signed on somewhere else. Hey, USFL scouting department, take a look. Right. You know, if it does happen to go the unfortunate way that it's going, why not take those chances? Get some guys on there that were ready to go, or at least getting trained up. So that's the best I can say. But yeah, if you're an MLFB fan, keep following along. If it turns around, great. If not, well, unfortunate, because that's sadly the status quo of how these leagues have gone as the years have gone by. You hate to see it.
Right. Well, at least there's plenty of other spring football to watch, right? There's the USFL, the XFL's coming back, the fan-controlled football, I think is coming back. I would assume they're coming back.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, they're trying to make basketball.
Yeah. Fan-controlled hoops.
FCH.
Yeah. Who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk it, man?
Unreal.
Anyway, so that's really it for this week. I mean, a lot of fun news, a lot of cool news that we're talking about. Maybe not a lot of different news than we have been talking about. But as we get further into the offseason, I'm sure we're going to be learning more about the draft, more details about season 2. So as always, we'll be bringing you the best coverage as much as we can as we get it. But, before we let you go, the same old usual stuff, social media at USFL Podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram for all the latest news, tidbits on the podcast, clips, things of that nature. If you're watching over on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, click the bell. It builds morale. I mean, if you were an MLFB fan, if you had some investments in there, maybe try clicking that bell, get that morale up a little bit.
Invest in us.
Yes, exactly. Invest in us. We'll always put a smile on your face. But hey, here's the other good thing. If you subscribe, once we hit to 5K, you can win your own personalized USFL jersey from the USFL shop. So once we hit to 5,000, we'll make sure to announce that winner. And until then, keep hitting that button. Keep getting signed up. Zach, any parting words before we go?
Just keep on following along. Check out the signings. It's probably not going to stop, honestly. I imagine there's more. As we were given, actually, the league, as they said, they can't really report on stuff without it happening yet. So I imagine there's more coming down the pipeline. I bet we break definitely 24 signings. So, more. Look, just keep celebrating these players getting this opportunity. And really, again, I and many others should be applauding the league for helping these guys get their chance back up on top. So, looking forward to what's ahead. And there's still tons of offseason stuff we don't know.
For sure.
So,
and I'll tell you
a lot
this,
more excitement.
Real quick before we go, my threshold was if the USFL hits 25 guys signed to the USFL, that's a success. We're 3 away from that, again, at the time of recording.
Close.
Here's what I want to know. Anybody listening to the podcast, let us know down in the comments below. Maybe leave a review with the comment if it's not on YouTube or something. How many guys do you think we're ultimately going to see get signed by the USFL? Because, we're dangerously close to 25. We could easily hit 30 at this point, maybe even more. So let us know your thoughts down below. Again, that helps your chances in the giveaway for that jersey as well. So it's not a bad thing there. But until next time, guys, join us next week, Fridays, 9 a.m. Eastern on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform of choice. Until next time, sign you up.